In this video, we're going to talk about simple interest. Now, interest is the fee paid to use someone else's money. So, for example, if you borrow $1,000, let's say, from someone, often they will want not only their $1,000 back over time, but they will want their $1,000 back with interest. Okay, so that interest is the fee paid to use their money. Okay, interest on loans of a year or less is usually calculated as simple interest, which is paid only on the amount borrowed or invested and not on past interest. So in a future video, we will talk about compound interest. That's where interest is paid on top of other interest. Okay, but in this video, we'll just talk about simple interest. Now, the amount borrowed is called the principal. The rate of interest is given as a percent per year expressed as a decimal. So for example, 6% would be 0.06. And the time during which the money is accruing interest is calculated in years. And we have the simple interest formula. It says the simple interest I on P dollars at a rate of interest R per year for T years is given by this formula. I equals P times R times T. Okay, I equals PRT. So let's do a very simple example. Let's suppose find the interest on $1,000 if $1,000 is borrowed at 4% for 1 year. Okay, if $1,000 is borrowed at 4% for 1 year. So let's remember our formula. I equals P times R times T. Now, what we're looking for is the I, the interest. Now, the principal, P, is 1,000. The rate is 0.04. So remember, don't just put in 4. Express it as a decimal, 0.04. And the years is just 1 year. So we'll put in 1 for the year. And if you multiply this out on a calculator, what you get is 40. Okay, so the answer is $40. That is the interest if $1,000 is borrowed at 4% for 1 year. Notice 4% of 1,000 is $40. Okay, but we run into other situations where the term might not be a full year. So let's look at another example. To furnish her apartment, Eleanor borrowed $5,000 at 7.2% interest for 11 months. How much interest will she pay? Okay, so again, let's remember our formula. I equals P times R times T. And we're looking for the interest. The principal this time is 5,000. The rate is 0.072. Okay, 7.2% would be 0.072. And how many years is it? Well, it's 11 months. It's less than a year. We can't just put 1 for a year. We're going to put 11/12. Okay, the time is 11/12 of a year. And if you plug this into a calculator, what you end up getting is 330. Okay, so the interest would be $330 of interest. Okay, if $5,000 is borrowed at 7.2% interest for 11 months, if we're using simple interest, the amount of interest would be $330. Okay, now let's talk about corporate bonds. Okay, now what is a corporate bond? Well, a lot of times corporations want to have a big project, for example, maybe build some buildings. Maybe this project is very expensive and they don't have all of the cash on hand that they need to actually do this project, build this great, multi-million-dollar building. Okay, so what do they do in that case? Well, one thing they can do is issue corporate bonds. Okay, and corporate bonds, ordinary people or investors can buy these corporate bonds. And what it means to buy a corporate bond is basically you are lending money to the corporation. Okay, so if a company issues bonds, you could buy those bonds, okay, say a $5,000 bond. You could buy that $5,000 bond. Basically what you're doing is you're loaning the company $5,000. And what they will do is they will give you interest on that money. Okay, and then they will eventually give you back your $5,000. Okay, now simple interest is normally only used for loans with a term of a year or less, but a big exception is this case of corporate bonds. Okay, and a typical corporate bond pays simple interest twice a year for a specified length of time. A lot of times it's 10 years, for example, at the end of which the bond is said to mature. Okay, and when it matures, okay, at maturity, the company returns your initial investment. Okay, so again, buying a corporate bond, if I or you were to buy a corporate bond from a particular corporation, basically it's like we're lending the corporation money and they give us interest on that money and then eventually they give us our money back. Okay, let's look at an example. A corporation is issuing 10-year bonds at an annual simple interest rate of 6% with interest paid twice per year. Suppose you buy an $8,000 bond. Okay, part A, how much interest will you earn every 6 months? Now notice interest is paid twice per year. So the question is, how much interest will you make every 6 months? Well, notice we still use the formula I equals P times R times T because we're doing simple interest. The principal is 8,000. Okay, the rate that you're getting is 6% or 0.06. And the time is 6 months. Now 6 months is really 1/2 of a year. So you could put 1/2 or 6/12, however you want to put it. But if you multiply this out, what you end up getting is, I believe, $240. Okay, so basically you loan this company $8,000. Okay, you're buying this bond. It's kind of like you're loaning them $8,000 and they give you $240 every 6 months. Okay, that money's not going up, it's staying $240 every 6 months. And then at the end of 10 years, they'll give you your $8,000 back. Okay, so you got $240 every 6 months, and then eventually you get the full $8,000 back. Okay, so that's the interest every 6 months. Now, how much interest will you earn over the 10-year life of the bond? Well, there's a couple ways you could calculate this. One is you could use this formula again, I equals P times R times T. The P, again, was $8,000. The rate is 6%. And the time would be 10 years. Remember, the time is in years, so it's 10 years. And if you were to calculate this out, this would be $4,800. Okay, $4,800. That is the interest that you would earn over the 10-year life of the bond. Another way to have calculated this would be to take your $240 and to multiply it by 20. Now, why 20? Well, it's a 10-year bond and you're getting interest every 6 months. So every 6 months you're getting $240. So basically multiply 240 by 20 and that ends up giving you $4,800. Okay, so you would get a total of $4,800 in interest, but then at the end of the 10 years you would also get your $8,000 back. Okay, so that is what a corporate bond is.